If you or someone you know is drowning in grief, then listen carefully because coming right up is a simple three-step process that anyone can follow to break free of the vice-like grip of grief, courtesy of the Akashic Records and your angels. Grief is the great equalizer. It can bring even the strongest to their knees. When you're mired in grief, you're effectively tuned into the grief channel. There you'll find more and more grief ensnaring you until it seems the entire world is drowning in grief, dying slowly by inches. Of course, you know that isn't true, but nevertheless, that's how it can feel. That's when the dark shadow of cognitive dissonance may cross your threshold, where what you know to be true conflicts with what you feel to be true. At the most extreme, it can cause you to question your sanity, but it doesn't have to be that way. Hi, I'm Debbra Lupien, voice of the Akashic Records, with a simple three-step plan that anyone can use to mitigate, if not eliminate, grief. Here's the truth. Grief is a choice. Yes, it is, but not a conscious one. Sadly, society has indoctrinated us to think that we should grieve because that's how we demonstrate our love for the departed. So you can choose to hold on to grief, feeling miserable, or at the extreme, putting your life on hold. Or you can rewrite the script and release your grief. I know it's hard to believe such a thing is possible. I can feel your resistance. But stick with me for a minute, and I'll show you how. Step out of the shadow into the light. There was a time in my early 20s when I was deeply mired in grief. My beloved grandmother died just as she was beginning her retirement. It was so unfair. She was the most precious person in my world. Days, weeks, months passed, and my grief remained raw. Many nights I cried myself to sleep. The pain of her loss was visceral. Finally, my grief receded into the background somewhat, yet it periodically came roaring back in waves of painful remembrance. That cycle continued for years. Years of my life passed, living under a dark, joy-dampening cloud. But all of that changed when I discovered the truth about grief. Fast forward to the present. Today I know better, and I'm free of the dark clutches of grief. I've found a simple, guilt-free way to overcome grief, and it's surprisingly easy. You too can release your grief and get back to living a glorious life with my simple three-step formula. But first, some background to help you reframe how you think about death and grieving. Truths from the other side. Through my work in the Akashic Records, I've learned a great deal about grief. These deep truths found in the records, once revealed, can change everything. To begin with, we have it all wrong. The departed don't want us to torment ourselves with grief or deny ourselves the joy of living. That doesn't serve anyone. Of course, you'll always miss the presence of a departed loved one, but you needn't suffer gut-wrenching grief that robs you of the joy of living. That's most definitely not what they want. In fact, by dancing with grief, you're holding them back from fully moving into their joyful life on the other side. Of course, you don't want to do that to your loved one. So let's talk about 3 simple strategies to set yourself free from the tight-fisted grasp of grief. Because really, isn't it time you step back into the warm, healing sunshine of love? 3 steps to grief relief. 1. Your departed loved ones want you to live the joyful life you came to the planet to experience. That's not disrespectful or disloyal or any other dis you can imagine. They'd rather you remember them with joy and smiles rather than sorrow and tears. When you let go of grieving, your connection to them transmutes to the golden light of love rather than the dark, clenched fist of grief. That's the higher perspective way to honor their memory. 2. Understand they're doing fine, better than fine. You don't need to worry about them. They're moving on with afterlife activities. They remain connected to you by love and will periodically check in, as well as come swiftly to your side whenever you call. So the less frequently you call, the freer they are to move on. That's the way it works. 3. Grieving is a choice, and you can choose to step out of grief. Let that one sink in a minute. At first, it'll seem impossible, But with practice, you'll be able to slip easily out of grief and right back into your joyful life. More about that in a minute. That's it. I told you it was simple. Of course, knowing and doing are two different things. So keep following on for help with putting this plan into action. Making better choices. Choose to focus on wonderful memories of your life with the departed. Instead of tormenting yourself, wishing they were here, focus on the precious gems, the memories you keep locked deep in your heart. When you choose to do that, you step out of pain and into the joy of your love for them. Each time a painful memory comes up, replace it with a good one immediately. Don't allow pain to drag you down. The faster you replace a painful memory, the sooner you'll be free of dark, sinister grief. Keep doing that. And be kind to yourself when you slip back into grief's territory. Just acknowledge grief, then once more, bring forward your bright, loving memories. Consistently practice this technique until one day, the strangling grip of grief becomes a rarity. When you do think of your lost loved one, it'll be a collage of sweet, joyous memories that leave you practically purring because grief has lost its dark, fetid hold on you. Making this mindset shift is totally in your power. I wish somebody had taught me this lesson years ago. It would have saved a lot of pain and suffering. That's why I'm so passionate about sharing it with you now. Skip the path shadowed by grief in favor of the sunny path. Celebrate the blessing of having your loved one in your life for however long that was. With this enlightened understanding, my entire perspective about death shifted, and yours can too. The aftermath of understanding. These days, when loss happens, I choose to feel peace, knowing that the departed is not only okay, but thriving. That takes away the sting of missing them. Now I'm free to celebrate their life and the wonderful memories we shared. Instead of devastating, the loss of a loved one can be transformative and liberating. I hope that you too will come to have an entirely new perspective on death and dying. Realize that if they've escaped their used up body, they're now free of that. They're young and able to move about, doing whatever brings them joy, reconnecting with their lost loved ones. This simple mindset shift is a blessed gift for you and for your departed loved ones. I hope that you'll take this new way of looking at death, dying, and grief to heart so that you can transform your experience and have more love, light, and peace in your life every day, because that's what living is all about. And frankly, that's what your loved ones want for you. Thank you for watching. This is Debbra Lupien, voice of the Akashic Records. Until next time, bye.